Hello, viewers. I want to be explicitly um, eloquent in what I'm about to explain in as far as these works are concerned. And I want to begin by reading a quote from my book, Treatise to My Learned Friend and the Attorney at Law. And there's a reason why I will be explaining almost everything that you see here in the shortest time possible. And this is no way of trying to challenge or provoke or cause any kind of jealousy of any sorts, but it's something that we have learned to do over a period of time, over several attempts of failure. But one thing has kept us moving, and that has been the tenacity and the resilience of to keep working and never give up. This does not mean that we have not had hurdles and failures. We have them, and every day we go through the same challenge. But with the grace of God, all things are possible. Uh, when I'm reading from this book, in the Docturis report on legal education, training, and accreditation in Uganda, chapter 4, page 35, the legal profession or legal education has undergone profound changes since the 1970s. This follows the recommendations by the Goa Committee on Legal Education that the system of training prospective lawyers by the apprenticeship should be replaced by a system of institutional training. So this gave birth to the Law Development Center, and where they train lawyers how to become advocates. Many of you are probably mindful of the many challenges that our brothers and sisters go through when they are at the Law Development Center. And so we have taken concern to be one another's keeper. And in doing so, we've been able to come up with a few materials that can address some of the challenges. And I speak this with absolute respect because I don't speak on behalf of the center, but on behalf of people who are hungry for knowledge. And one of the things that we came up with is this big book here called Objection, My Lord. If you look at this book, it has about 6 volumes. If you're careful enough to look at it, you'll realize that this is volume 1. I can pull it out. Volume 2, I can pull it out. Volume 3, volume 4, volume 5, volume 6. And we have the one that is called the directory. This is the directory. So the directory basically will direct you to what is contained in everything that you'll ever need in as far as understanding legal practice, particularly for an advocate. Now, the beauty about this package is that not only does it address most of the things of a legal practicing for that purpose, but it also helps to address issues to do with every document. Look, for example, this volume, which is volume 6, is called Litigation Lingo. This has all documents you'll ever need in as far as practicing is concerned. It has every document you probably ever need. Consider it a form of encyclopedia for court forms and precedents. And so this addresses what many people call category A. And as I said, this book has quite a number of things. In it, we have quite a number of things. And for example, volume 1 basically will talk about things to do with land transaction. Volume 2 will talk about family law and practice. Volume 3 will talk about corporate and commercial law. Volume 4 will talk about civil litigation, and then we have litigation lingo, as I told you. So you have everything, as I said, in one full pack. It comes in hard copy, beautiful packed box, and it will help you to demystify the law. It's necessary for every practicing advocate in this country and perhaps in the entire world. We discuss everything you may come across as far as practicing is concerned. And we were also able to address category B and category C. Now, if you look at this one, we have one what we call I so pray, my Lord. It also comes in its own package. You see, when I pull it out this way, you see that it will come out. And so it has a package as well. And this basically, again, addresses things to do with, for example, trial advocacy, accounting, management, taxation, and professional conduct. Again, necessary for those in practice or those who want to enter practice. Then we have this one here, which is another component, which is called Much Obliged, My Lord. Again, it also comes in a package, as you can see, in a box. And in this, we address issues to do with corporate governance, legislative drafting, judicial practice, public and legal practice, legal aid, and pro bono. As I said, all these things are discussed in detail with case laws and the likes. Now, when you have a package of objection, my Lord, I so pray, my Lord, much obliged, my Lord, I guarantee you, you will have no reason to have challenges for those of you who are at the back course. Now, we have another one here, which is an addition that can help in terms of the art of oratory in jurisprudence. Now, we did this specifically because we realized that, unfortunately, lawyers seem to be the only people who are not taught the art of oratory, the idea of public speaking. That's why we call it the articulate attorney at law. And we cover issues that have to do with, for example, persuasion, the art of persuasion, closing arguments, logic and emotions, the art of examination in chief, trial objections, things to do with the structures of submissions, nervous energy versus dynamic energy, confidence, the art of remembering everything, gesture studies, the body, the brain, the voice, elocution, everything you will ever need. It even has quotes of some of the prominent lawyers in this world. People like Alan Dojeveld, the popular Alan Dojeveld of Harvard Law School. People like John Cochran. Some of you remember the trial of the century. People like Lord Denning. People like Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, regarded as probably one of the wisest lawyers who proponed the idea of legal realism. So this is a masterpiece, again, as an addition for some of these books that you may need when you are practicing or doing law. And this is necessary for even politicians. Now listen, what is so interesting about law these days is that, and I would like to make another quotation from this book, perhaps before I continue. I would like to quote something for you that is important again in terms of trying to understand and appreciate the components of law. I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson in 1871 said that if a man can write a better book or preach a better sermon or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if they build the house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. So we know that when you do your job, people will seek you out. And Bernard Shaw once said, most men see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that are not and ask why not. So I want to encourage you that this is intended to help you to excel. This is intended to help you to do over and above. And even as you think whether or not you have the capability to do what you're doing, listen what Orison Swett Marden once said. He said, deep within a man dwell those slumbering powers that would astonish him, that he never dreamed of possessing. Those forces that will revolutionize your life if aroused and put into action. So even as we do the things, we intend to provoke, we intend to inspire you, we intend to motivate you so that you know that all things are possible. Listen, I would like to continue with this. Like I told you, in law school, perhaps again, is the only place where they do not teach us the psychology. So we have co-opted a book called The Psychology of the Law. This will teach you as a lawyer to know why it's necessary for you to use psychology, because almost everything that you do as a lawyer is basically premised on psychology. Under this, we discover or we talk about things to do with the history of psychology, biopsychology and cross-examination, personality and violence, psychotherapy and violence, intelligence and violence, the nature and nature of debates, mental illness in terms of what? Substantive abuse, assessment of insanity, psychiatric evidence, juvenile delinquency, and stuff like that. So this is another must-read book for you who want to become fine pencils in the legal jurisprudence of this country. Listen, we have also not ended there, but you see, we have found it necessary that even as we pursue the things that we do, we think that the education system should be resonate with changing circumstances, and it should accommodate situations. We should not be dogmatic. I know that there's a problem with the law, and one of the books that we wrote is called Freedom Through the Law, where we argue that the law is dogmatic, this ideology of following precedents. But I believe in legal realism, whereby law should be interpreted in terms of changing prevailing circumstances. And that's why we embrace new ideas or new innovations that are coming on right now. So most of the books that you're going to see here are books that actually answer some of the questions. I'll begin with, for example, this one here. It's called The Law of Forensic. Listen, this is extremely important today. Many of the challenges we have in this country are only answered by Scotland Yard in England, and we're not able to answer questions when we have issues, for example, when our loved ones are shot or given poison and stuff like that. So here we talk about forensics, we talk about the origin of autopsy, process of mummification, the forensic of technology, the origins of ballistics, things to do with the anthropometry, the origins of fingerprints, DNA usage, things to do with progressive change, comparisons analysis, things to do with probability techniques, and things to do with professional witness, determination of torture, psychological autopsy, evidence in courts, doctors in courts, the burden of proof, evidence on scenes of the crime, taking of photographs and capturing videos, drawing sketches, things to do with cross-examination, trace evidence, things to do with the pleas, and things to do with criminal procedure in forensics, verdicts, pleas of not guilty and guilty in terms of forensic law, criminal profiling, tertiary education in terms of what is required, bricks and mortar and the Socratic method in terms of teaching that help you, forensic pathology, medical jurisprudence, state medicine, inquest, everything that you probably Y chromosome analysis, mitochondria and DNA analysis, STR analysis, PCR analysis, things to do with DNA technology, things to do with evidence of handling or limitations or exceptions to statutes, stuff like that. Forensic, what they call forensic victimology in terms of practice, things to do with writing forensic reports, for example, things to do with the story of model and DNA evidence, sample checking, sample reports, sexual assaults, and the likes. We may give examples even that are related to some of our cases here that have argued forensic law. Of course, borrowing a lot also in terms of comparative analysis, in terms of what is required. So these become extremely important, because if you miss out on them, then you will gonna find yourself in serious trouble. We have things to do with fingerprint processing, for example, things to do with labeling, things to do with cybercrime forensic and the law, blood, substantive blood stains, packaging, for example, ignitable liquids, tool mark evidencing, stuff like that, coincidental issues, actors use, and we even talk about some case studies to do, like, for example, Zeblek versus UBC and Wabag, things to do with Quama Inc. versus Broadcom Corporation, things to do with the Incorporated Service Solutions versus Rodman. We have incredible cases here that discuss some of the major things in terms of forensic law in the world and also in this country. We also talk about Uganda versus Urea Nsenga. Some of you know that case. Simon Musoke versus Ara. Many of those things, we talk about Godi versus Uganda. All those cases are argued in terms of forensic law and how beautiful and necessary this is for you when it comes to the law of forensics. Now listen, so I think every law school should accommodate this, and that's why we are advocating for a change in terms of jurisprudence. Then we got another one here that has to do with cyber law. This becomes another important book for you because without this, is concerned.
lost their patent, and some other rich people took it away from them. Some of you probably enjoy some of their products. I will not mention the names, but this will be an eye-opener. Things to do with witchcraft, sorcery, and the Illuminati. Many people know what the Illuminati is, but they don't understand exactly what are the philosophical, underlinings or underpinnings of it. And so the law of Illuminati in terms of witchcraft and also sorcery also becomes a question of importance in Uganda. And these are things that we also talk about, the concept of witchcraft, the etymology and definitions, the roots of witchcraft in terms of incidents, aspect to do with sorcery and mythology, aspect to do with the criminalization of witchcraft, social merits of witches, demystifying what they call the idiotic myth of witchcraft, and the impact of supernatural power in African communities. Then the Illuminati, churches, and as far as the Illuminati is concerned, then the big lies of the Illuminati, and then the eternal oath of the Illuminati, and stuff like that. So we argue that in terms of Ugandan context, where we argue that witchcraft is an omniscient threat, that what happens in terms of redress, if some kind of supernatural power, call it an act of God, but in the negative perspective, encounters you, how do you address those issues? We have also interesting books, for example, like Legal Appraisal of Winjaga and Cannabis, Associated Medicinal Harms in Uganda. This is another important book for you because it gives you an underlining whether or not we should decriminalize or delegalize this particular shrub, if you like. What's the use of cannabis? What are the components of the cannabis? What are the medicinal applications? How about cannabis withdrawals, effects of cannabis use in terms of medical use? How about comparative with other jurisdictions? How about aspects to do with the legality of cannabis, perception of drugs, even things like opium, heroin, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, cat and effects and stuff like that. Cat itself, by the way, is a very, very big contributor to many countries' economy, what people call mira. Some of you probably know it. And then herbs as a medicinal plant. We are thinking that we should go away from simply criminalizing it to delegalizing it, and therefore make it substantive and competent enough for people to use it wisely in tandem with the law. We got this book here called Ubuntu Bulama and the Law. No doubt about this. Some of you probably have already seen this. This is an aspect, it's more like a debate of sorts in terms of going back to our roots, where we argue in terms of what went wrong with our law, in terms of the inception clauses, and in terms of the law by virtue of the order in council. And when you read some of these statements, for example, of people like Lord Mackley, who said, I have traveled across the length of the breadth of Africa. I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth have I seen in this country, such high moral values, people with such caliber, that I do not think would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore I propose that we replace our old and ancient education system, her culture, for if the Africans think that what is foreign in English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. If that doesn't arouse eyebrows, then I don't know what to tell you, my friend. This is a question of importance. I already told you about freedom through the law in terms of arguing the dogma of the law, but we also bring in some of those components of what is necessary as far as freedom of the law is concerned. And in it, we argue and make important discussions that have to do with the law as a dogma. So we also make some proposition in terms of the origin of the law, in terms of theories of the law. This becomes very important in terms of theories of the law, by the way. For example, the Romano-Jamaic legal system, the common law family. Some of you only know the common law family. Things to do with the Jamaic civil law system, Muslim, Hindu, and Jewish law. Stuff to do with the legal doctrine, the origin of the law. Things to do with the religion and the legal ethics. And then lawyers and clients in terms of as a moral covenant in terms of what is required. And then aspects to do with the law of precedent as a witness. Aspects to do with the law as a clog. And then aspects to do with the legal realism and some sort of Ubuntu Bulam, if you like. And then we've also got this other one here, which is called intelligent design and the African ontological and epistemological aesthetics, a legal philosophical discourse, where we argue again in terms of trying to understand whether or not Africa had a god, or whether or not we were simply, the god that we have was imported and therefore imposed on us. You want to understand what is written here. The intention of this book basically is to affirm the existence of an African God, if there's anything like that. God, the maker of the dynamic universe. In this book, I analyze the myth of various African peoples who relate that after setting the world in motion, the supreme being withdrew and remains remote from the constants of human life. Or better perhaps, he set his paradigms, in which we call mankind, could reach him through different metaphors, call them religion. So we're arguing in terms of conversion of religion rather than divergence of religion. Another interesting one for those of you who are music lovers is the law of music in Uganda. This also becomes a question of importance, because how often do we see a lot of copyright infringement in terms of music? But in here we discuss issues that have to do with copyright, for example, things to do with live performances, artist representation in the music industry, ways to maximize your profits, music publishing rights, things to do with synchronization rights, things to do with print rights, concert rental rights, new media rights, things to do with the relationship between radio and records, things to do with the performance of writing acts, things to do with internet and musical copyright, things to do with the production and performance, listening and purchasing, music and human rights. All this becomes a question of importance for you, my friends. So listen, my friends, I've been able to go through a number of them, but listen, the others that I haven't told you about. We have another one here called the law of sports and entertainment in Uganda. This becomes another one because this, again, discusses a very important subject that many of you enjoy, the comparative analysis of sports. What's the law that governs sports? How do you separate a field of law in terms of sports? How do you argue in terms of human rights issues in terms of sports, gamblings and integrities, contracts and agents of sports? What is the Ugandan regime as far as sports is concerned? What does Olympic sports and international organizations argue in terms of sports? How about the anti-doping of the law of sports, torts and negligence in sports, the discrimination in sports, intellectual property and image rights, arbitration and the likes, health aspects? All this is argued in this book of the law of sports and entertainment in Uganda. We got another one here that is also important for the media people, the media law and policy in Uganda, a legal appraisal in terms of journalism. Here we argue in terms of what is required for purposes of protecting the rights of these people. The original media law, for example, the legal framework, the breaches of media law, things to do with the role of media law, things to do with defamation, for example, aspects to do with the relevancy of things in terms of compensation, remedies in terms of monetary compensation, aggravated damages, exemplary, things to do with social media and the law, aspect to do with self-made media self-regulation, freedom of expression in Uganda, aspects to do with the role of courts in ensuring freedom of expression, and many, many others. And we have also got attachments to some of the international, regulations, if you like, that are concerned with protecting the rights of media. We got another one here that's important for those of you who like money a lot. I know money is the source of what? All evil, but this becomes a question of importance because this, again, is the future, the law of cryptocurrency and cryptography in Uganda, digital money. Here we argue in terms of what is important, in terms of the different types of crypto, currencies, the Bitcoin, for example, the Ethereum, the Ripple, the Litecoin, the Bitcoin Cash, many of them, as you can see them, in terms of the impact of what they have and how they're supposed to be regulated. Excuse me. And then we also talk about the Bitcoin technology, for example, the risks in terms of the crypto markets, international practice in terms of cryptocurrencies, and then aspects to do with the taxation in terms of the digital economy, and then the legality of it, and the regime governing the taxation of cryptocurrencies. So here we have recommendations that we make and also attachments, and whether or not the legality that is a question of debate in Uganda today. We have also got this interesting one here, which has to do with demystifying the order from above. This one becomes of interest because many a time we have people who have argued what is the order from above. You know this idea, you come and apprehend someone and you say order from above. That's why we call it Uganda versus Attorney General, when the forces exceed their constitutional mandate. Here we are arguing things to do with the historical development of criminality, arrests and warrants. How do you arrest someone with a warrant or without a warrant? Detection, conducting arrests, interrogations and confessions, aspects to do with search and seizure, aspects to do with the human rights perspectives, many other things, things to do with the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, what constitutes an interrogation, rights to bail, aspect to do with the rights of accused people, what criminal justice and first authority of the state, those aspects, even the Posse Comitatus Act
even the Miranda rule that many people will not understand. How do you enforce it? Admissions and confessions, coercions and beating, phone tapping, gazetted sales and safe house. All those aspects. I talked about the posse comitatus here, and then issues to do with quarrying riots, aspects to do with the human rights violations, the legality of it. Then we have issues that have to do with encroachment in terms of general freedoms of the state and the like. So this is another important book for you to comprehend. We got another interesting book here that is extremely important. It's called Exhausting the Inexhaustible Buganda Ghost: Hoodwinked, Dumped, Used, and Redumped, a quest for Buganda's cause for Buganda's independence. Here we are arguing in terms of whether or not the things that Buganda has today are self-made or they were given a bad deal. So we talk about the Magazine Buganda, for example. We talk about the 1900 Buganda Agreement, the applicability of the test of a valid contract as far as the 1900 Agreement was concerned, the order in council, the unmasking of the Buganda in terms of colonial rule, development of the protectorate, the first Kabaka crisis, second Kabaka crisis, third Kabaka crisis, the coffin cake saga, the federal question. All those aspects are argued here, and it is important for you. And then the indispensability of the Kabaka, the position of the Kabaka in terms of the Korean era, the suing of the Kabaka, stuff like that. And then whether or not the Buganda Agreement is void ab initio or voidable in law. This is a must read again for you people who are interested in knowing some things about that. Now here comes the Tome. This is a big book here that talks about the exit constitutional mandate. This is a must read for every person who likes constitutional law. And when you look at it, you're gonna appraise yourself with everything that has to do with constitutional law in the country that has ever happened since the beginning of Uganda. Okay, here we have quite a lot of information: the doctrine of separation of powers, the role of the legislature in terms of checking, things to do with more constitutional minded than executive, things to do with executive and the Buganda question, aspects to do with the executive and religion, aspects to do with not a mere change of arm but fundamental change, where we're arguing in terms of what happened with the NRM issues, political questions, referendums, electoral democracy, things to do with situations from other jurisdictions, for example. You're going to find interesting information that you would have never found anywhere in any book, because we collected this and took us enormous time to make sure to come up with this book. It answers a lot of Buganda's question. We have an interesting one here that I don't want to miss out. It's called The Rebels of Jurisprudence. And again, it also comes in a package, as you can see. When you look at this book here, it comes in a package, and when you open it, has a good package, as you can see. And here we discuss what we call Legal Hall of Fame, Uganda's legal generals. These are people who have made fundamental impact on this country. And I can tell you that when you appreciate some of them, you'll understand why they're here. People like Professor Joseph Kakoza, Professor J. Oloko Nyango, Professor David Bachivinga, Professor J.W. Kanyehamba, Professor Sylvia Tamale, Professor Sempewa, Professor Tuinomugisha, Professor Ntabireki, Professor Christopher Mbazira, Professor Mamdani, Professor Ali Mamzui, Professor Tibatema, Professor Yash Standard. We have quite a number. I cannot go all of them, but as you can see, all of them are here. And we even have the rebel man himself. Some of you know Isaac Semakade. He's here. You could read it and find a lot of interesting things. Even Malema Vedizi is captured here because he has actually made a great contribution in terms of the jurisprudence of this country. So we know that we give credence where it is due. Interestingly enough, what I've been showing you can also be found here. You see, when you look at these come in terms of what they call QR coded, call them calendars if you like. These ones, we give them to you as souvenirs. So each book has, you see a book here, and then you see a QR code. When you put your phone here, the QR code will reflect, and then the book will automatically come on your book or on your phone. So we are now moving in terms of digital. So every cover here with the book has a QR code, and that should give you, the entire book without even wasting a lot of time. Even if you go to lubogo.org or suegeneslawup.com. Same thing here with many of these things. We do the same thing. So this has also got everything that is required. So when you look at it, we have all these things in terms of the quotation, different quotations from different lawyers or different people who have made significant mark in this country. And these are all reflected in our books here that we have. So ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few of the things that the invisible hand of God has enabled us to do.
The reason why I want to go to the liberty of trying to explain all this is so that you understand the value and the relevance of these things. They don't come easy. They come with sweat, with blood, and with tears. They come with a lot of sacrifice. But we're grateful to the Sui Generis team. We have a team of incredible young people from all over the country, from almost every university in this country, who have been part and parcel of making this dream come. And we appreciate them and comprehend them every day. We can't ever give them enough. This is only our simple gift that we give to the world. Just like we did the Sui Generis Law app. Some of you know it. When you go to Play Store, you can find it free of charge. You go to suigenerislawapp.com for those of you who have iOS, and you can simply put that in, Google it, it will come. If you have Android phone, you simply go to Play Store and then you put Sui Generis. They're two of the kind, and you will get them on your phones. And then when you go to lubogo.org, you still find all these books free of charge. You even go to almost every repository in the country. Go to Makerere University Faculty of Law repository. You go to Nkumba University. You go to IU. You go to UCU. You go to Nkozi. You go to any university, name it. Almost every university now, even the US Congress, the biggest library in the entire world, has this book. So this is just a tip of the iceberg. We're just beginning to see how we can change jurisprudence in this country. So my friends, let's be part of this dream. Let's keep dreaming. Let's never give up. Let's keep our focus. And I know that the sky is no longer the limit. Thank you for your time, and God bless you. Be part of the dream.